Welcome to this third installment of Unchoir. I am Bjorn from Christ the King Lutheran Church in Bloomington, Minnesota, with a preview and a little working session of the music for the Sunday service coming up. We will be going over 3 hymns tonight, some of which are familiar, one of which is particularly familiar, and one of which may be new to a lot of people. So we'll have a mix of music tonight. Unchoir, again, is where we explore the history, the patterns of the congregational music that we will offer to God in worship on Sunday. So let's jump right in. The first hymn that we'll be looking at tonight, and we'll be looking at on Sunday and encountering it in worship, is the old hymn, "This is My Father's World." This will be familiar to many. However, if you're a younger person, this might be the first time you'll encounter this. But this is a hymn certainly beloved by one's parents and grandparents. This hymn was written by Maltby Davenport Babcock. Very waspy name. He was from New York. He lived from 1858 to 1901. And this hymn is probably his most well-known. It's been beloved by children of many generations, often taught in Sunday schools, sung by children's choirs, youth choirs. This hymn uses concrete imagery from all over the natural world, hygiene. And again, he was a New Yorker from upstate New York, graduate of Syracuse University, and he continued his theological studies at Auburn in New York. He served in New York State, Baltimore, and New York City at different parishes as a preacher and pastor. Babcock, in addition to writing This Is My Father's World, was known both as a skilled amateur musician. He was a great violinist, organist, piano player, and also a great athlete. He was recognized by his university with achievements in swimming and baseball as well. He loved the outdoors and had a rugged athletic build, and certainly could have been a model for the Bounty, what is the pancakes, the lumberjack. Anyway, so he was a big guy, and but a very kind heart. While he was a pastor at Lockport, New York, near Lake Ontario, he would often make it a practice to, in the mornings, go for a walk to a hill north of town where you could overlook Lake Ontario and the surrounding hillsides. And he had an expression. He'd often say, I'm going out to see my Father's world on these little expeditions. So he wrote this hymn. It originally had 16 stanzas, and they've been reduced down to about 3 or 4 in modern hymnals. Our Lutheran hymnals, both that we currently use and predecessors, combined about 4 stanzas into 3. And they all continue his love affair with the natural world. A couple stanzas that often aren't included, but a few lines may be familiar, read thus. "This is my Father's world. Should my heart be ever sad? The Lord is King, let the heavens ring. God reigns, let the earth be glad. This is my Father's world, now closer to heaven bound. For dear to God is the earth Christ trod, no place but is holy ground. This is my Father's world, I walk a desert lone. In a bush ablaze to my wondering gaze, God makes his glory known. This is my Father's world, a wanderer I may roam. Whate'er my lot, it matters not, my heart is still at home." So from 1887 to about 1900, Babcock was the senior minister of a very prestigious church, Brown Memorial Presbyterian, in Baltimore. And while pastoring Brown Memorial, he was acclaimed for his oratory and his wonderful sermons, and was very popular with the students at neighboring Johns Hopkins University. He also led a fundraising effort to assist Jewish refugees from Russia who were victims of anti-Jewish pogroms, hate crimes of the 1880s. So not only was he wasn't resting on his laurels, he was also very actively engaged in the world around him. He and his wife had 2 children, both died in infancy. He struggled with depression in his later life, And he only lived to just a few short months before his 42nd birthday, dying of brucellosis, which is a bacterial disease, after a trip to the Holy Land in 1901. His sermons and writings were published after his death and have a pattern of being very down-to-earth and realistic, not shying away from life's difficulties, but maintaining utter trust in God's providential, loving will. One other text that has been actually set to music draws out similar sentiments as we sort of peer into his mind, as it were. This is another poem of his. Be strong. We are not here to play, to dream, to drift. We have hard work to do and loads to lift. Shun not the struggle. Face it, 'tis God's gift. Be strong. Say not the days are evil. Who's to blame? And fold the hands and acquiesce. Oh, shame. Stand up, speak out, and bravely, in God's name. Be strong. It matters not how deep entrenched the wrong, how hard the battle goes, the day how long. Faint not, fight on. Tomorrow comes the song. Those words ring true even today. Now the hymn the hymn tune we use for This Is My Father's World is known as Terra Beata. That's Latin for Blessed Earth, very appropriately named. It's based on an English folk tune, but was shaped by Franklin Shepherd, who was an editor of the Presbyterian Hymnal in 1911. And Shepherd stated that this was an English folk tune that he learned from his mother in his boyhood. But research shows that the tune was altered just a little bit from its original form. I actually have the English hymnal from 1911 here, and this is the tune that he's referring to. And I'll just play it for you once. Hi, Nancy. And you'll notice where it's similar and where it's different. So very similar in some phrases and vastly different in others. I'm not sure if it was a trick of the imagination or his own improving on the tune in his own way, but I think modern congregations would certainly agree that the tune we use is a little easier to learn and follow. So this hymn reminds us that of all the wonders of creation, this is our Father's world, our concern and care for the earth entrusted to us, and that even though we have disasters like fires and human sorrows that arise, God lovingly walks beside us. So let's sing through This Is My Father's World. Many of you will have this text ingrained in your memories. Hi, Bev.
This is my Father's world, and to my listening ears all nature sings, and round me rings the music of the spheres. This is my Father's world, I rest me in the thought of rocks and trees, of skies and seas, his hand the wonders wrought. This is my Father's world, the birds their carols raise, the morning light, the lily white, declare their In the rustling grass I hear him pass. He speaks to me everywhere. This is my Father's word. Oh, let me not forget that though the wrong seems of so strong, God is the ruler yet. This is my Father's word. Why should my heart be sad? The Lord is King, let the heaven ring. God reigns, let earth be glad.
So that is probably the most familiar hymn that we'll encounter this week. Moving ahead, we also have a hymn that is well known in some circles of our American culture, North American culture, and less well known in some of ours. Lift Every Voice and Sing. This anthem was first performed as a poem as part of a celebration of Abraham Lincoln's birthday, and later set to music. In 1919, the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, known as the NAACP, dubbed it, quote, the Negro National Anthem, for its power in voicing a cry for liberation and affirmation of the African-American people. And this song is definitely a prayer of thanksgiving for thankfulness, faithfulness, and freedom, with imagery that evokes the story of the biblical exodus of the Israelites from slavery to freedom. And it is featured in over 35 different Christian hymnals sung in churches on the North American continent. The text, actually this is a compilation by a pair of brothers. The text is by one brother, James Weldon Johnson. He lived from the 1870s and died in the 1930s. He was an American writer and civil rights activist. Johnson was a leader of the NAACP, where he started working in 1917. Johnson established his reputation as a writer and was known during the Harlem Renaissance for his poems, novels, anthologies, collecting both poems and spirituals and the songs of black culture. He was also appointed by President Theodore Roosevelt as the U.S. consul in Venezuela and Nicaragua for most of the period from 1906 to 1913. So he was also engaged in a governmental capacity as well. In 1934, he was the first African-American professor to be hired at New York University. And later in life, he was a professor of creative literature and writing at Fisk, the historically black university. Now, opposing race riots in northern cities and the lynchings frequent in the South during and immediately after World War I, Johnson engaged the NAACP in mass demonstrations. He organized a silent parade of more than 10,000 African-American citizens down New York City's Fifth Avenue in 1917 to protest the frequent lynchings of blacks in the South. Social tensions erupted all over the place that year, or shortly after that year, as veterans returned from the First World War and tried to find work. In 1919, Johnson coined the term the Red Summer. You can look that up. There's all kinds of terrible history regarding that Red Summer of 1919. And Johnson organized peaceful protests against these acts of white violence against black people that broke out in that year, not in the South, but in the industrial cities of the North and Midwest. Chicago, St. Louis, all kinds of places. Now his brother, J. Rosamond, and I haven't found out his first name. He seems to go by J. Rosamond, so I'm not sure what his first letter stands for. He composed the music for this song. And Rosamond was trained at the New England Conservatory of Music, and he also studied in London. His career began as a public school teacher in his hometown of Jacksonville, Florida, and traveling to New York, he began his show business career. So he composed music not for the church, but for the stage. As half of a songwriting team, he wrote such works as The Evolution of Ragtime, and he produced 2 successful Broadway operettas with casts of black actors. Johnson, the brother that wrote the music for Lift Every Voice and Sing, also performed in these operettas, several of which went beyond the light theater of the day. These depicted characters of multiple races within the same storylines, sometimes with romantic plots across racial lines, and underscored the common humanity shared by all people. As much of a hymn as an anthem, Lift Every Voice and Sing summons forth the best in us to stand for what is right, however inconvenient, and rejoices in the faithfulness of God, who is ever leading his children from bondage to liberation. So especially as we think about supporting our black and brown-bodied neighbors and congregants, I thought this would be a wonderful hymn to sing this coming weekend. And again, this is the one that's probably the least familiar, so I'll bring us through it, and we'll work on it a little bit together here. I'll play through it once, and then I'll point out a few things that are kind of stumbling blocks the first time through singing it, to avoid some common pitfalls. Here the theater comes in, the drama. Again, not your grandmother's hymn, but a good hymn. And there's one jump that I think is particularly interesting the first time we sing through it. When we get to that one point, sort of the midway, where we go into the minor mode. We've been in this sort of cheery G major, then we go into then in the full minor mode, this jump, and then we float up. It's a really interesting harmonic moment, and it's as we go over the text, you'll understand the drama and why he maybe wrote such an awkward interval, that jump of the 2 notes. Da 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 to 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 da 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 So that's kind of going through the melody. The text is full of the same sort of emphasis on drama and struggle, and ultimate victory that we have, of course, in a religious context, but also as we think of the struggles of history of different groups, embracing their full humanity, their God-given humanity. Lift every voice and sing, till earth and heaven ring. Ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of our new day begun. Let us march on till victory is won. Stony the road we trod, bitter the chastening rod, felt in the days when hope unborn had died. Yet with a steady beat, have not our weary feet come to the place for which our parents sighed. We have come over a way that with tears has been watered. We have come, treading our path through the blood of the slaughtered. Out of the gloomy past, till now we stand at last, where the white gleam of our bright star is cast. In this stanza, this middle stanza, we have echoes of lots of struggles, but I think particularly the Civil War, in that coming through the blood of the slaughtered, and the white star, the North Star that led so many slaves to either freedom in the North or just north enough to get behind some of the Union lines where they could either be assisted or even serve in the Union Army and try to help liberate their brothers and sisters still held in bondage in the Deep South. The last stanza, God of our weary years, God of our silent tears, Thou who hast brought us thus far on the way, Thou who hast by thy might led us into the light, keep us forever in the path, we pray. Lest our feet stray from the places, our God, where we met thee, lest our hearts, drunk with the wine of the world, we forget thee. Shadowed beneath thy hand, may we forever stand, true to our God, true to our native land. And of course, this can be sung in any country, by any people, and certainly the human sentiments included in it are common to many, if not all, of our human brothers and sisters. But I think in these particular days, it's good to remember our struggles that we have as a nation with our original sin of slavery and the ramifications that echo centuries and centuries later as we still struggle to be the nation that we purport to be. So let's sing this. Lift every voice and sing. This will actually be our closing hymn on Sunday. And the prelude that you'll hear on Sunday is also based on this. So I'll put that little earworm in your minds.
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of our new day begun, let us march on till victory is won. Stony the road we trod, bitter the chastening rod, felt in the days when hope unborn had died. Yet with a steady beat, have not our weary feet come to the place for which our parents sighed. We have come over a way that with tears has been watered. We have come treading our path through the blood of the slaughtered. Out of the gloomy past, till now we stand at last, where the white gleam of a bright star is cast. God of our weary years, God of our silent tears, Thou who hast brought us thus far on the way, Thou who hast us forever in the path we pray. Lest our feet stray from the places, our God, where we met thee. Lest our hearts, drunk with the wine of the world, we forget thee. Shadowed beneath thy hand, may we forever stand, true to our God, true to our native land.
Definitely a hymn that we should explore more. And happens to be in the general praise and thanksgiving section of our hymnal, so I guess we can sing it any time of the year. The next hymn also has some flavors of social awareness and Christian responsibility to our neighbor. The hymn, is entitled, let me find it, that might help. Lord, whose love in humble service, in our ELW hymnal at 712. This hymn was written by Albert Bailey, an Englishman who lived from 1901 to 1984. He received his education at London University and at Oxford. Bailey was a congregational minister, serving from the late 1920s until his death in 1984. His life and ministry spanned the Depression of the 30s, the Second World War, the years of Reconstruction in Great Britain that followed all the destruction from the war. And he wrote several pageants and also librettos for cantatas by the organist and composer William Lloyd Webber. William Lloyd Webber happened to be Andrew Lloyd Webber's father of musical theater fame. Reverend Bailey wrote the text, Lord, whose love in humble service, in response to a Hymn Society of America's search for new hymns on social welfare. In the 1960s, there was a concern that there was a disconnect between the church's hymns, largely from the Victorian era, that spoke to their time and to some truth, but not the full truth of sort of that mid-post-war 1950s, 60s, 70s, 20th century experience of people. So trying to find texts that contemporized the Christian experience and the Christian life, and speaking to different realities to supplement all the good material that was from before. We are part of a living tradition after all. Hello, Cheryl and John. So this hymn was actually premiered at the National Conference on Churches and Social Welfare held in Ohio in 1961, and the Hymn Society published the text the same year. It's found in many, many hymnals. And the text begins with remembering Christ's sacrifice on the cross, and then points to the needs currently of the homeless, the hungry, prisoners, mourners. Bailey's words remind us of modern refugees, pandemic patients, famine victims, all those people that are as close to our doorstep or who are brought to our attention by our news media. And the final two stanzas encourage us to move from Sunday worship into weekly service, reminding us that such integrity is really part of the Christian life, and our whole lives can be a liturgy of sacrifice, pleasing to God. We'll be singing Lord, whose love and humble service to the text Beach Spring. And again, all hymn tunes have their own text names so that some tunes and texts can be interchangeable. And this text, I think, really underscores the beauty of the poetry. The rhythm of the text is pretty gentle. I'll just explore a few inner stanzas. This will be familiar to many of you who worshipped with the 1978 Lutheran Book of Worship, the Green Book, and as we continue to use our ELWs, the Cranberry Hymnal, the text is the same. Some of these inner stanzas read thus: Still your children wander homeless, still the hungry cry for bread, still the captives long for freedom, still in grief we mourn our dead. As you, Lord, in deep compassion, healed the sick and freed the soul, by your Spirit, send your power to our world to make it whole. As we worship, grant us vision till your love's revealing light, in its height and depth and greatness, dawns upon our quickened sight. Making known the needs and burdens your compassion bids us bear, stirring us to ardent service, your abundant life to share. So the tune Beach Spring has this gentle back and forth. Lets the text sing. So this tune, Beach Spring, is from the Sacred Harp, which was a shape note singing text from the 1800s, edited by B.F. White, who likely composed the tune. The Sacred Harp taught people to sing using a system of shaped note heads. So if you know anything about music, where do is or so, a symbol. So each symbol of do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do is given a different note head and a shape. If you can see, I have a copy of the Sacred Harp, and you'll see the note heads look a little wonky. And that's part of this numbering system of the pitches. What this did was allowed people to sight sing in any key and not have. There are so many great tunes in the Sacred Harp. They display that sort of early American, rugged, simple, beautiful melodies that inspired so many of the American composers of the 20th century. These tunes, many of which were written by White, have that sort of character. White was kind of an interesting person. He was a fifer in the War of 1812, and then started as an adult singing schools. He worked on a few other shape note hymnals, often not credited, and then he came up with the Sacred Harp, which is probably the Bible of that system of singing. And there are Sacred Harp singing societies all over, including in Minnesota. There's a group that meets in St. Paul very frequently that I've sung with on a few occasions. So these tunes are just wonderful tunes. If you've heard the music of Aaron Copland, you've encountered these tunes. If you follow Ken Burns' historical films on PBS, you've encountered these tunes. They're very durable. They're just so early American, and they have that sense of hope and rigor that is probably why they're used in so many North American hymnals. So as we continue, I'll sing through this text, and we'll sing through Beach Spring together.
Lord, whose love in humble service bore the weight of human need, who upon the cross forsaken worked your mercy's perfect deed. We, your servants, bring the worship, not of voice alone, but heart, consecrating to your purpose every gift which you impart. Still your children wander homeless, still the hungry cry for bread, still the captives long for freedom, still in grief we mourn our dead. As you, Lord, in deep compassion, heal the sick and free the soul, by your Spirit send your power to our world to make it whole. As we worship, grant us vision till your love's revealing light in its height and depth and greatness dawns upon our quickened sight, making known the needs and burdens your compassion bids us bear, stirring us to ardent service, your abundant life to share. Called by worship to your service, forth in your dear name we go, to the child, the youth, the aged, love in living deeds to show. Hope and health, goodwill and comfort, counsel, aid, and peace we give, that your servants, Lord, in freedom, may your mercy know and live.
So you can see in all these hymns that we've explored tonight from the 1800s through the 1960s are just as relevant today as they were when they were first written. Our human struggles and experiences are so similar across time. And as we live through these days of pandemic, we too can draw on the wisdom and words from these forebears of ours who left such beauty and hope, not only for today, but for tomorrow. So I hope you have enjoyed this edition of Unchoir, and look forward to singing these again on Sunday, whether you join CTK online or in person for our drive-in service. And I will meet with you again next week. I plan on recording these mostly on Mondays, probably in the evening around 7 o'clock, so if you look forward to making a routine of that. And they will also be included in the Tuesday email that goes out from CTK. So if you're not a Facebook person and love hymns, or know somebody that loves hymns that doesn't use Facebook, remind them that that is included in the Tuesday email with a link, and they can just find it right away from the email, and no need to be a Facebook person or worry about that. So God bless you all tonight, friends, and I hope you have enjoyed exploring this music together. I know I have. Peace.